My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about why broke people stay broke and rich people get richer. And honestly, the answer isn't what you think it is. If you're someone who feels like you're working hard, making decent money, but somehow never getting ahead, like you're running on a financial treadmill that goes nowhere, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change how you think about your first $5,000. Here's the thing. Most people think saving money is linear. They think going from $0 to $5,000 is the same difficulty as going from $5,000 to $10,000, which is the same as going from $10,000 to $20,000. It's not. It's exponentially different. And here's what most people don't realize. Your first $5,000 is objectively the hardest money you will ever save in your entire life. But it's also the most important. And I'm going to prove that to you with math, with psychology, and with real examples that are going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about building wealth. Now look, I want you to imagine two people. Person A has $0 saved. Person B has $5,000 saved. They both make the same income. They both have the same expenses. They both get hit with a $400 car repair. Person A puts it on a credit card at 19% interest. Person B pulls it from savings, fixes the car, and moves on with their life. That's the obvious difference, right? But here's where it gets interesting. 6 months later, Person A is still paying off that $400 repair, except now it's $438 because of interest, and they've missed building any savings because they're stuck in debt repayment mode. Person B not only handled the repair, but their $5,000 has been sitting in a high-yield savings account earning 4.5%, and they've continued adding to it. Fast forward 1 year. Person A is behind. Person B is ahead. Fast forward 5 years. The gap is massive. Fast forward 10 years. They're living in completely different financial realities. And it all started with $5,000. This is the thing that makes me legitimately frustrated when I see financial advice that tells people to invest before they have an emergency fund. You cannot build wealth when you're constantly responding to financial emergencies. You just can't. According to the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. 40%. That means nearly half the country is one broken transmission, one medical bill, one unexpected expense away from going into debt. And once you're in that cycle, it's incredibly hard to break out because debt has interest, and interest works against you every single day. Now you might be thinking, okay, Ely, I get it, emergencies are bad, but $5,000 seems arbitrary. Why not $3,000? Why not $10,000? Great question. Here's the math. The average American has monthly expenses of around $3,500. That includes rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, transportation, all of it. 3 months of expenses is $10,500, which is the traditional emergency fund target, but here's what nobody tells you. You don't need 3 months of expenses saved before you start seeing the psychological and financial benefits. You need enough to stop the bleeding. $5,000 covers the vast majority of common emergencies. A new transmission, a root canal, a broken furnace, a layoff that gives you breathing room to find something new without immediate panic. It's not perfect protection, but it's enough to break the cycle of emergency debt. Here's what happens psychologically when you hit $5,000. And this is where people really underestimate the power of this number. When you have $0 saved, every single day feels like you're one disaster away from catastrophe, because you are. Your nervous system is in low-level fight or flight mode constantly. You make worse decisions because you're operating from scarcity. You take the payday loan. You put everything on credit cards. You stay in jobs you hate because you can't afford to take time to find better. You don't negotiate salary because you're afraid of losing the offer. Scarcity brain makes you small. But when you hit $5,000, something shifts. You start making decisions from a place of abundance instead of desperation. You start thinking longer term. You start saying no to things that don't serve you. You start saying yes to opportunities you would have been too afraid to take before. There's actual research on this. A study from Princeton University found that financial stress reduces cognitive function by the equivalent of 13 IQ points. 13 points. That's the difference between average intelligence and borderline intellectual disability. When you're worried about money, you literally cannot think as clearly. You make impulsive purchases. You miss opportunities. You fail to plan. Your first $5,000 buys you back those IQ points. It buys you the mental space to make smart decisions. And smart decisions compound over time, just like interest does. Now look, let's talk about the momentum effect, because this is where things get really interesting. Going from $0 to $5,000 takes most people between 6 months and 2 years depending on income and expenses. It's hard. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. You're saying no to things. You're cooking at home. You're skipping the weekend trips. You're driving the paid-off car instead of upgrading. It feels slow. It feels impossible some days. But here's the beautiful thing. Once you hit 5,000, going to 10,000 takes half the time. Going from 10 to 20 takes even less time. It's not because you're suddenly making more money, although you might be. It's because you've built the habits. You've built the systems. You've proven to yourself that you can do it. The psychological barrier is gone. I want you to think about it like this. Your first $5,000 is like pushing a boulder up a hill. It's heavy. It's exhausting. Every inch forward feels like a battle. But once you get that boulder to the top of the hill, once you hit that $5,000 mark, now you're pushing it downhill. Gravity is working with you instead of against you. The momentum builds. The habits are automatic. The sacrifices don't feel like sacrifices anymore because you've rewired your relationship with money. Here's another way to think about it. $5,000 is the difference between being a consumer and being an investor, not in the stock market sense, although we'll get there, but in the life sense. When you have no savings, you consume your paycheck. It comes in, it goes out, you're living paycheck to paycheck. When you have $5,000, you start investing your paycheck. You invest in your future. You invest in opportunities. You invest in skills, in education, in tools that generate more income. You start thinking about money as a tool instead of a source of stress. That mental shift is worth more than the $5,000 itself. Now, let's talk about the opportunity cost of not having $5,000, because this is where the math gets painful. Let's say you're 25 years old. You don't have an emergency fund. Over the next 10 years, you have 5 emergencies that cost an average of $800 each. That's $4,000 in emergencies, which happens, by the way. That's not even a worst-case scenario. But because you don't have savings, you put each emergency on a credit card at 18% interest, and it takes you an average of 18 months to pay each one off. By the time you're 35, you haven't just paid $4,000. You've paid closer to $5,400 because of interest. That's $1,400 that just evaporated. $1,400 you worked for, earned, and gave to a credit card company for literally nothing. No value, no product, no service, just interest. But here's where it gets worse. That $5,400 could have been invested. If you'd invested $1,400 at age 25 in a basic index fund earning an average 8% annual return, by age 65, that $1,400 would be worth over $20,000. $20,000. You didn't just lose $1,400 to interest. You lost the opportunity to turn that money into generational wealth. And that's just one example. Multiply that across a lifetime, across dozens of emergencies, and you start to see why people without emergency funds never get ahead. They're not just paying for emergencies. They're paying interest on emergencies and losing the opportunity to invest. It's a triple loss. This is where it gets interesting. Once you have $5,000, you stop losing money to emergencies and you start having the breathing room to make money from opportunities. Let me give you a real example. A friend of mine, let's call him Marcus, worked in tech sales. Decent job, decent income, but he was living paycheck to paycheck. No savings. Then his company announced layoffs. He got let go. No emergency fund. He had to take the first job he could find, which paid $20,000 less per year because he couldn't afford to wait for a better offer. He stayed in that lower-paying job for 3 years before he finally climbed back to his original salary. That layoff cost him $60,000 in lost income. $60,000 because he didn't have a few months of expenses saved. Now contrast that with another friend. Let's call her Sarah. Same situation. Tech layoff. But Sarah had $8,000 saved. When she got laid off, she didn't panic. She took 2 months to interview, to network, to find the right fit. She ended up getting a job that paid $15,000 more than her previous role. That emergency fund didn't just protect her. It allowed her to level up. That's the difference $5,000 makes. It's not just defense. It's offense. Now you might be thinking, Okay, Ely, I'm convinced, but how do I actually get to $5,000 when I'm barely making ends meet as it is? Here's the thing. You don't need to save $5,000 in 1 month. You need to save it over time in a way that doesn't destroy your life. Let's do the math. $5,000 over 12 months is $417 per month. Over 18 months, it's $278 per month. Over 24 months, it's $208 per month. $208 per month is doable for most people. That's eating out twice less per month. That's one less subscription service. That's selling stuff you don't use. That's a side gig a few hours a week. It's not easy, but it's possible. Here's what I want you to do. Open a separate savings account right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. A high-yield savings account that's not connected to your checking account. Somewhere that requires a transfer, so you don't accidentally spend it. Name it something specific. Emergency fund, freedom fund, peace of mind fund, whatever resonates with you. Then automate a transfer. Even if it's $50 per paycheck, even if it's $25. Automate it so it happens before you have a chance to spend the money. You will not miss it. I promise you. You will adjust. Humans are incredibly adaptable. You'll find a way to make your budget work, and in 12 months, you'll look at your account and see money you forgot you were even saving. Here's the psychological trick. Don't think about what you're giving up. Think about what you're gaining. You're not losing $200 per month. You're buying peace of mind. You're buying options. You're buying freedom from the stress of wondering what happens if your car breaks down. That's worth more than any dinner, any gadget, any impulse purchase. Now look, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, Ely, I have debt. Should I be saving $5,000 or should I be paying off my credit cards? This is a great question, and here's my honest answer. It depends on the interest rate. If you have high interest debt, like credit cards at 18 or 20%, you should absolutely be attacking that debt aggressively. But, and this is important, you should still be building a small emergency buffer at the same time, even $1,000. Because if you put every single dollar toward debt and then have an emergency, you're just going to go back into debt and you'll never escape the cycle. Build $1,000, then attack debt, then build to $5,000. That's the sequence. Here's what most people don't realize. Your first $5,000 is teaching you something more valuable than the money itself. It's teaching you delayed gratification. It's teaching you discipline. It's teaching you that you are capable of controlling your financial future instead of being controlled by it. Those lessons are worth millions over a lifetime because once you prove to yourself that you can save $5,000, you can save $50,000. Once you can save $50,000, you can invest it. Once you can invest, you can build wealth. It all starts here. I want to leave you with this. 5 years from now, you're going to be in a completely different financial position. The only question is whether it's better or worse than where you are now. If you start today, if you commit to building that first $5,000, 5 years from now you'll have an emergency fund, investments, options, and freedom. If you don't, you'll be in the same place you are now, or worse, still stressed, still living paycheck to paycheck, still one emergency away from disaster. The difference between those two futures is a decision you make today. Your first $5,000 changes everything because it changes you. It changes how you think. It changes how you make decisions. It changes what you believe is possible. And once you believe wealth is possible, once you see that number grow, once you experience the peace of mind that comes with financial security, there's no going back. You'll want 10,000, then 20, then 50, then 100. And before you know it, you're not worried about emergencies anymore. You're thinking about retirement, about generational wealth, about the kind of life you actually want to live instead of the life you're forced to live because of money stress. So here's my challenge to you. Start today, not tomorrow. Today, open that account. Automate that transfer. Commit to the goal. And in 1 year, come back to this video and leave a comment telling me you hit $5,000. I'll be here. I'll be cheering you on. Because I know you can do this. I know your first $5,000 is going to change everything. Now go make it happen.